What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Poker Vlogs. So last night we when I say we, I mean like me and a couple friends. We usually did like once a month or once every couple week poker games, home poker games. But now we're obviously moving online for everything due to the pandemic and whatnot. So we are utilizing Pokerstars in order to do some home games remotely. We do a Zoom conference and hop on Pokerstars. Anyways, it's a good time. Now, I'm not saying that we did it for cash, but like if we did it for cash, this is how I would do it. 10K buy-ins, 5,100 small big blinds, effectively 5 cents and 10 cents. $10 buy-in would be 10,000 chips. You basically just multiply by 1,000 to figure out the dollar amount. I mean, you can do whatever buy-in you wanted, but I'm just saying, like theoretically, if I wanted to do it for cash and we wanted to do it for $10, that would be how I would equate it. Anyways, it was a lot of fun. I'm just going to go over some of my hands from last night. And well, until the casinos reopen, I guess this is kind of as good as it gets. If you didn't check it out, the last vlog that I posted, the first vlog actually on this channel, was just a review of a Pokerstars tournament that I did. Not great at tournaments, to say the least. If you want to see that, I think I lost every hand I played. And yeah, I lost ultimately with a flush, and I lost on that hand. So yeah, if you want to go check that out and see me just lose a ton of hands, you can do that. Otherwise, in this vlog, I actually do decently. So let's just hop into it. We'll start reviewing some hands, and hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, so the very first hand we get, we're in the big button. We have King Jack offsuit. And my thought is I'm just going to limp in, being the first hand of the night, just sort of see what we can get. I probably could have raised this up maybe to 200 or 300, not scared too many people off, but we decided just to call here since two people already folded. Flop comes, we landed Jack, so we're going to go ahead and bet here. We definitely want to get some value out of these guys. Don't want to scare them off too early, but I think we just do $100 or 100 chips. And we get one caller and one person folds, and we are off to a turn. So we think just for a little bit, throw out a bet of 100, and we immediately get a fold. So we take down the first pot. We're up $272. So a couple hands later, we are under the gun. We get Jack Ace, and I decide to see the flop, so I call for $100. The flop doesn't help us. The turn doesn't help us. We end up checking around both times. I think this actually checks all the way around into the river. Nobody has anything, and the board's just not looking great. I'm not going to throw out a bluff bet here, even though I probably could because I had decent showdown value, but, there was a pair, and he ended up taking it home. Very next hand, we're the big blind. We have 2-3 suited. I like this in the big blind. Again, we just limp in, not getting too aggressive since we're just playing with friends. Every now and then later on you might see an opener, but otherwise we just limp in here. The flop does not help us at all. I think it just checks all the way around. So I'm immediately thinking nobody has anything, otherwise they probably would have bet knowing these guys. The jack comes, again no action, and then the 3. Now, one of my friends leads out here with $300. And I pretty much fold right away. Now, I did pair up on the river, so looking back at it, I probably should have called the 300 because I did hit a pair. There was no action earlier on. The next hand, we're in the small blind. We're dealt ace-2 offsuit. I like the ace, so I'm going to go ahead and make the call for 50 chips more. Doesn't make that much of a difference at this point, and at least we have the high card. Unfortunately, as soon as we make that call, we see the flop, and nothing really plays. So we just go ahead and check it here. As soon as the person on the far left here makes a bet, we just decide that we're going to lay it down as it's not worth playing out. Now, the reason I bring up this hand is because later on, this is kind of a nice read. The player on the left bets 200 here, and at the end of the hand, we see that they were dealt a open-ended straight draw. So that's good to know. They did pair up here on the turn with the 7, but as far as having a strong hand and opening after the flop, it's just a nice read to get earlier on some players. Next hand, I'm dealt Queen 10 suited in the cutoff. I decided to make the call. The big blind raises it up to 250. Again, I like this hand based on our position. The ranges for the other players and what we're dealt, this looks good as well. So we go ahead and make the call here again, and we are off to a flop 4 ways. We're off to the flop four ways. We see a 10, and immediately we're thinking, let's get some value out of these guys, seeing as how we have top pair currently, and I don't think anybody else has pocket pairs due to the previous action. We throw out a bet here of 200, and we get, I think, two callers, one folds, and we are off to the turn. The turn comes, it's another five. Now, this isn't great. I decided to check it through just in case the late position player is potentially playing like a 5-6 suited. Um, but again, not very likely, not seeing too much action. So it ends up just checking all the way around. We see the river, it goes check, check, check. We end up taking it down with a 10 pair. However, looking back on it, I probably should have bet something for value on the river, seeing as how nobody bet trip fives or anything like that, and I had top pair on the board. Next hand, we're under the gun. We get ace queen offsuit, and we decide to open with $100. Just limp in, see if we can see the flop. The flop comes 8, 10, 5. Not ideal. It doesn't really help us at all. It doesn't improve our hand. So we just go ahead and check it through and hope that we don't have to make any calls here. This is where we really like the queen on the turn. I throw out a bet of 100, but the button is quick to raise it up to 200. I make the call thinking that I have the best kicker and we can get some more money here. Hopefully take home this pot. We get another caller here, so we go to the river three ways. It's a 2, a nice brick for us. We go ahead and throw out another bet of 472, half pot size. Unfortunately, we're called, and this is where things go downhill. We see a 10 queen. They have two pair. We have one pair with an ace kicker, and unfortunately, we're not able to take this one down. Later on, we're dealt ace 2 suited in the cutoff. This is probably one of my favorite hands, as it does leave possibilities for a flush draw, straight draw, and potentially highest pair. Unfortunately, we really get nothing on the flop or the turn. It checks all the way around both times, getting no action. Finally, on the river, we luck out and we see an ace. Yep, that's right, guys. We decide to go all in here. Actually, we don't. We bet 100 chips. We get one person to call, and we take home the nice small pot. What a win. So the very next hand we play, we're up a little bit of money. We decide to play under the gun with 6-4 suited. Obviously not really in this range, but I decided to play it since we're up, and we can probably just limp in here. So we go ahead and throw out 100 chips, and it ends up calling all the way around the table. So we're able to see a flop and then sort of reevaluate from there what we want to do with this hand. Obviously, we see a pretty great flop. No flush draw, but we have a gut shot straight draw, which is fantastic for us. I go ahead and just check it, and the turn is the beautiful 3. So we hit the straight. Right now we have the nuts. We throw out a bet of 100. We don't want to scare anybody off. Ace 4 gets there, I guess. But, if there's any pairs, I definitely want to get some money out of them. Potentially the 10. Now the river comes, and this isn't ideal. Now anybody with an ace, a 6, a 6-7 potentially beats me, or is able to, I guess at the very least, split the pot with me if they have a 6, for example. We go ahead and throw out another bet of 100 just to see what happens here. We get the button who actually raised it up to 200, and at this point we decide to make the call thinking that there's no way they have the 6-7. They turn their cards, they have ace 8. So we have a higher straight. We end up taking home this pot and move our chip stack up just a little bit more. The next hand we play, we get pocket kings in the small blind. We decide to raise it up to 200, and we end up getting everybody to make the call after this, which is fantastic. Built up a decent sized pot going into the flop for us. The flop comes, it's a beautiful rainbow, 2, 4, 7. Someone might have a busted straight draw here, something like that. I throw out a C bet of $100. I figure if someone actually has maybe a low pocket pair and hit a set, they might raise me up. But we only get 2 callers. The other 2 fold and we go to the turn. This card isn't ideal, just seeing as how it does help out the straight draw. If you have a 5-6, ace 5, you got there. The 8 doesn't help too much, but doesn't really change much for me at this point. Nobody really bet, so I do a half-size pot here just to see if anybody's going to call me on this or raise me up. We get one caller, which makes me a little nervous, but the next player ends up folding, so cards end up just getting mucked. I don't know what he had. I'm not sure why he was calling on this without a straight, but yeah, kings take it down. So at this point, we've picked up another player. I'm now middle position, under the gun +1, hijack, whatever you want to call it. It's a pretty small group. Ace 5 suited, we just call with 100. We want to see the flop. Flop comes beautiful, Ace King 4. We pair up, it's a nice rainbow board. And, you know, potentially straight if we hit 2-3, but not really looking for that. The ace is what we like here. We go ahead and throw out a C bet of $100, which actually gets everybody to fold except for one player, the small blind. So he's in it with us to the turn. We see the beautiful 5 of diamonds turn here. So rainbowed board, we have 2 pair with the top pair as well. At this point, I'm thinking he probably has an ace or a king in his hand, but getting that second pair here with the 5, I go ahead and do a half pot bet. I'm thinking that if he does have the 2-3 and hit the straight on the turn, then he'll probably raise me up. Even though he was in the small blind, I don't see the 2-3 being in his range. However, the river comes, and it is probably the worst card for us, the king. At this point, he leads out with 500, which I'm guessing he has the king, but I'm hoping that he might have the ace. I go ahead and make the call, and he turns over his cards for the bad news. He takes the pot. A couple orbits later, and finally a 7th player to join in on our game. I'm dealt ace jack suited in the small blind. Great position here, or at least decent, and definitely love this hand. I go ahead and just limp in. Want to see what kind of flop I can get with this. Could have gone for some value here, but ultimately decided against it, as a lot of times, you know, you can spook some people. But we go to the flop 5 ways, and we see a dream flop. We have ace jack, top 2 pairs on the board. So at this point, I go ahead and think that I'm going to go for the check raise here. You know, there's 4 other people that it has to go through. I'm thinking one of them will bet with something. We do end up getting a bet of 100. We get a caller with 100, a fold, and then we go ahead and re-raise to 200 just to get more value into this pot here. We get another fold, and then 2 players raise or call, and we go to the turn 3 ways. Being out of position, we see the 7 on the turn, and I go ahead and check it because somebody could have the straight here now, a nice straight draw. And we do see a bet of 100, and it's raised up to 200. Now, these aren't huge bets, so having the 9-10, unless somebody was trying to slow play it, I'm still thinking that I put them both on you know, a pair of aces or a pair of jacks. And so I make the call. Now, we go to the river, and it's a 3 of spades, which is a nice brick card. So I go ahead and throw out a half pot bet. Seeing as how no one has really, there hasn't been much action, they're not raising it up too much. I'm just thinking that if someone had the straight, they would have bet. Granted, also with this crowd, you never really know. Unfortunately, we get 2 callers, and we get the bad news that someone does have the 9-10, they hit the straight, and they take it down. A couple of hands later, we're in the hijack position, we're dealt pocket 6s. This is looking pretty good. We go ahead and make the call for $100, and we go to the pot we go to the flop 6 ways. We see a dream flop, 6-8 jack. We hit the set. We see an initial bet of $100. We go ahead and decide to raise it up to $200. The initial bettor ends up folding, and we go to the turn 5 ways. Now, unfortunately, the turn comes the queen. Now, at this point, just from a couple hands ago, I'm now thinking again, someone could potentially have the 9-10, but what are the odds of that, right? Well, stay tuned because you'll clearly find out here in a minute. We get a check, and I check again in case someone may have hit the queen. I want to see if they'll bet, and I can check raise them. But nobody bets. We go to the river. It's a 4, kind of a brick card, but I guess you could potentially hit the 5-7 straight now. I go ahead and throw out a half pot bet of 800. The next player tanks for a little bit and ends up making the call here, which again makes me nervous. In the same situation as I was in the last hand I just reviewed. 3 people fold. He turns over the bad news, 9-10 yet again, and he takes the pot. All right, buckle up for this hand, guys, because this is quite interesting. We're dealt 8-7 suited in the big blind, and go ahead and limp in. The flop comes 10-4-3 with 2 spades out there, which is great for us. We hit the flush draw, pretty low cards. So we go ahead and just check it around for now. It checks again to me. And at this point, I'm trying to determine if someone has the straight or not. And if they do, if they're actually going to bet into me. So I just throw out a small bet of $100 to see if I get raised here. It ends up just going all the way around. Everybody calls until the cutoff, who raises it up to only 200. So I go ahead and make the call again, seeing as how I have a decent amount of equity here. If I'm able to hit the spade on the turn, I can play it out. If not, I'll probably just fold. The river comes and it's the queen of spades. This is a decent hand for me, seeing as I do have probably the best hand on the board, except for a higher flush. So at this point, I'm thinking somebody else is going to have 2 spades in their hand, and that would have to be higher than mine. Now I'm a little nervous here because there are 3 people left. The player next to me ends up re-raising to 2,400. And this makes me a little bit nervous, and I probably would have folded here, except the next 2 players also make the call. So this puts me in an interesting position because normally if it was heads up or I was probably the next person to go after, the person that raised it up, I probably would have folded. But because 3 people made the call for 2,400, I decided to make the call, just seeing as how large the pot was at that point, and that I really only needed like $1,400 more or $1,600 more dollars to make the call. To me, the odds were worth it. So I went ahead and made the call. Cards turn over. We hit the flush in this situation. Somehow I beat out a lower flush than me, even only having the 8 of spades in my hand. So we go ahead and take down a nice large pot and move up, and we are now the chip leader. All right, we're now under the gun. We throw out a bet of $100, sitting with pocket jacks. We have the jiggities. We are, I guess, the second chip leader just by a little bit. So we go ahead and play this. We go to the flop 5 ways. 7-2 queen. Not ideal, because if someone hit the queen, we are no longer the top pair. We decide to check it. However, the very next player throws out a bet of $100. However, for that cheap price, we're definitely going to stay in this and see the turn. So we go ahead and make the call, thinking that they might have ace-king or maybe a king in their hand, and they're just trying to pair that up. The king, unfortunately, comes on the turn, which again is less than ideal for us. It does check to us, so we check again. However, the same player that bet the first time bets 200 now. And I'm thinking maybe he paired up, maybe he's slow playing it. But for 200, we'll see the river. The jack comes, we hit the set on the river. So anybody that hit the pair with the king or queen, we're now golden. So at this point, it checks to us. We tank for a little bit just to make people think. We throw out a bet of just $500. Nothing too crazy, but if we can get some value, that'd be great. We get 1 caller. The card's mucks, I'm not sure what he has, but we take it down. We're once again the chip leader.
And that was pretty much it for the evening. So I think we played like well over 100 hands. I think I saw the flop on over 50% of the hands. But if you guys are enjoying the content, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So as you can see with this group of people, I know them, we're all friends. Most of the time, it's a lot of just sort of limping in. Every now and then I would raise it up. Some other people would raise it up, but nothing too crazy. There were some big hands, there were some all-ins, but for the most part, it's harder to do like the whole bluffing and stuff like that when you're sitting behind a computer screen. Also, I will say that my group of friends, there's probably like 3 or 4 of us that like really know like the order of all the hands, like the hand ranking, and then some of them, they're literally just like, yeah, I'll play poker, sure. So that's kind of why you see kind of bet sizing all over the place, hands that you probably wouldn't normally see playing out, stuff like that. But anyways, I thought it was pretty good for the most part. It's still a fun time hanging out with friends, talking on Zoom and playing poker, so can't really complain. And it's the next best thing if the casinos aren't open. I guess until next time. I think there's like another tournament that Adam Root does. I watch his poker vlogs too. He does those on Wednesday nights. I believe you can hop in like a Facebook group, get into those. They're on Pokerstars as well. I'm having fun with it. It's something to do. It's a good way to kill the time, especially spending so much time at home. But that's gonna be it for this vlog. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, thanks for watching.